1 year after High Elder Varath knelt before President Yunji, the galaxy gathered once again in the Great Hall of the Council Station. But this time, everything was different. The old Council of Elders was gone. Varath had dissolved it himself, just as he had promised. In his place stood a new assembly, with representatives from every species, not just the ancient and powerful, but the young and small as well. And at the center of the assembly sat a Sai, human. Admiral Jinho had been chosen as the first speaker of the new Galactic Union. It was a position of honor. Not power, a symbol that all species were equal under the new laws. He wore his old uniform, black and silver, but now it carried the badge of the Union on his chest. "Today," Jinho said, his voice echoing through the hall, "we signed the Treaty of Unity. This document represents everything we have learned in the past year. It promises that no species will ever be treated as less than another. It guarantees freedom, trade, and mutual protection for all." He looked around the hall. Thousands of aliens watched him, the same aliens who had laughed at humans just 1 year ago. Now they listened with respect. "We did not win this through war," Jinho continued. "We did not win this through threats. We won this by walking away and letting the truth speak for itself. The truth that cooperation is stronger than domination. The truth that kindness is more powerful than cruelty." Ambassador Yuna stood beside him, holding the treaty document. She had worked for months to write every word, negotiating with hundreds of species, listening to their fears and hopes. "This treaty is not perfect," she said. "No treaty ever is. But it is a promise that we will try to do better, that we will respect each other, that we will build something greater than ourselves." One by one, the representatives came forward to sign. The Tyranny leader pressed his hand against the document, leaving a mark in blue ink. The Balkani ambassador wrote her name in flowing script. Even the raiders, who had been defeated in battle and offered peace, sent a representative to add his mark. Varath was the last to sign. He approached the table slowly, his old body bent and tired. The past year had taken much from him. He had lost friends, power, and pride. But he had gained something too. "I was wrong," he said to the crowd. "I spent 10,000 years believing that strength meant control, that power meant domination. The humans taught me that true strength is the courage to change. True power is the ability to admit mistakes." He signed his name, the last signature on the last page. The hall erupted in applause. For the first time in galactic history, every species was united under a single banner of equality. After the ceremony, Jinho walked through the halls of the station. He found Varath standing alone on a balcony, looking at the stars. "High Elder," Jinho said. "Or should I call you former High Elder?" Varath smiled sadly. "Just Varath, please. I am no longer a leader of anything." "That's not true. You led your people through the hardest transition in their history. That took courage." Varath shook his head. "It took desperation. I only changed because I had no choice. You showed me what I really was, a tyrant who mistook cruelty for wisdom." Jinho stood beside him. "Maybe, but you changed. That matters." They watched the stars together in silence. Somewhere out there, human ships were flying again. Trade routes were reopening. Medicine was being delivered to worlds that had suffered without it. The galaxy was healing. "What will you do now?" Varath asked. "Return to Earth, I suppose. See my daughter. She's grown up so much since all this began." Jinho smiled. "Maybe teach young officers. Tell them stories about the old days." "Will you tell them about me?" "Yes, I will tell them about the creature who tried to enslave humanity and ended up learning the most important lesson of his life." Varath laughed softly. "Not a flattering story. An honest one. That's better." On Earth, the news of the treaty signing was met with celebration. People danced in the streets. Fireworks lit up the sky. President Yoonji addressed the nation from the steps of the Capitol building. Today, we have achieved something our ancestors never dreamed possible, she said. We have taken our place among the stars, not as servants, not as slaves, but as equals. This did not happen because we are stronger than other species. It happened because we refuse to give up who we are. In the crowd, Captain Sora listened with tears in her eyes. She thought about the Varkian medical ship she had turned away. She had heard that peace had come too late for many of them. That guilt would stay with her forever. But she also saw the Varkian ambassador at the signing ceremony. He had shaken Jinho's hand and thanked him for sending medicine as soon as the borders opened. His people would survive. The disease would be cured. Some wounds could be healed. General Hannah stood beside her. What are you thinking, Captain? Sora wiped her eyes. I'm thinking about how close we came to losing everything. And how lucky we are that we didn't. Luck had nothing to do with it. We made this happen through patience and sacrifice. I know, but it still feels like a miracle. Months passed. The new Galactic Union grew stronger. Trade flourished. Science advanced. Species that had never spoken to each other began sharing knowledge and culture. Humans were at the center of it all, not as rulers, but as connectors. Human merchants traveled everywhere. Human doctors treated patients of every species. Human engineers built bridges between worlds. And in schools across the galaxy, children learned the story of how the humans walked out of the council hall. Remember this lesson, teachers said. Power is not about control. Strength is not about weapons. The greatest victory is the one won without a single shot fired. Admiral Jinho retired to a small house by the sea on Earth. His daughter Soman visited him often, bringing her own children to hear their grandfather's stories. Tell us about the council. Grandpa. They would say dot, and Jinho would smile and begin the tale. Once upon a time, the great powers of the galaxy thought they could make humanity kneel. They laughed at us. They threatened us. They called us insects. But we did not kneel. We did not run. We simply walked away and waited. And in the end, they learned that the smallest species can change the universe if they are brave enough to stand for what they believe in. The children would listen with wide eyes, imagining the great hall, the angry elders. The moment when their grandfather tore up the treaty and walked away. Were you scared, Grandpa? Someone's youngest would ask. Terrified, Jinho admitted. But being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what's right, even when you are scared. And so the story passed from generation to generation. The day humanity walked out. The day the galaxy learned respect. The day everything changed. Earth had never been the strongest world. It had never been the oldest or the richest or the most advanced, but it was the world that taught the universe a lesson it would never forget. Humanity would not kneel. Humanity would not surrender. Humanity would stand tall among the stars, not because they conquered, but because they endured. And that was enough. That was everything. The end. 3 months passed. The galaxy was changing in ways no one had expected. Ambassador Taiho sat in his office on Earth, reading the daily reports. He was an older man with white hair and kind eyes. Before the crisis, he had spent 30 years building friendships with alien species. Now, those friendships were being tested. Another message from the council, his assistant said, placing a tablet on his desk. They want to restart negotiations. Taiho did not even look at it. Same conditions as before? Yes, sir. They demand we return to the station and apologize for the insult to High Elder Varth. Then my answer is the same as before. No. The assistant nodded and left. Taiho turned to look out his window. He could see the ocean from here, blue and endless. He remembered a time when humans dreamed of reaching the stars. Now, they had reached them, only to find that the universe was full of creatures who saw them as nothing. But things were changing. On the other side of human space, Captain Sora commanded the border patrol. She was a young woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. Her ship, the Iron Star, was one of 50 vessels guarding the invisible line between human territory and Council space. Every day, alien ships approached the border. Some were merchants begging to trade. Some were diplomats asking to talk. Some were refugees fleeing the chaos that had spread across Council worlds. Sora turned them all away. "Captain," her officer said one morning, "there's a medical ship from Varkas. They say their people are dying. They need human medicine." Sora's heart was not made of stone. She knew about the disease killing the Varkians. She knew that human drugs could save them. But she also knew her orders. "Tell them to contact the Council," she said. "The Council can help them. The Council has no cure. Only humans do." Sora closed her eyes. "Then tell them I am sorry. But our borders are closed." The medical ship floated at the edge of human space for 3 days. Then, slowly it turned and flew away. Sora watched it go on her view screen. She felt sick inside, but she did not change her mind. This was war. Not a war of weapons, but a war of will. And humans could not afford to show weakness. Back on the Council station, the elders were meeting every day. The news was always bad. "The Tyranni have declared independence," reported Elder Krivax, the spider-like creature. "They say they no longer recognize Council authority. The Balkani are demanding we apologize to the humans," added Elder Morath, a being made of living crystal. "They threaten to leave the Alliance if we do not. The raiders are attacking everywhere," said Elder Yeneth, whose body was like smoke and shadow. "Without human patrol ships, our borders cannot be protected." Vareth listened to all of this with a face like thunder. 3 months ago, he had laughed at the humans. He had called them insects. He had thought they would come crawling back within weeks. They had not come back. Instead, they had become invisible. Their ships were gone. Their voices were silent. Their borders were sealed like walls of iron. And without them, everything was falling apart. How did this happen? Voreth demanded. "We are the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. How can we be so dependent on one small species?" Advisor Telek stepped forward nervously. "High Elder, the humans were clever. Over the past 50 years, they made themselves essential. Their medicine cured diseases no one else could treat. Their technology solved problems no one else could fix. Their merchants connected worlds that had never traded before. They planned this," Voreth realized. "They knew this would happen. Perhaps, or perhaps they simply worked hard to be useful. Either way, the result is the same. Without humans, our alliance is dying." Voreth stood up from his chair. He walked to the great window of his chamber and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the darkness, the humans were waiting. Waiting for what? For an apology? For revenge? For the Council to collapse? He did not know. And that scared him more than anything. On Earth, life continued. Farmers worked their fields. Children went to school. Factories produced goods that would have been sold across the galaxy. Now, those goods sat in warehouses, unused and unwanted. President Yunji knew that her people were suffering too. Trade had stopped. Jobs had been lost. Many families struggled to buy food. But she also knew that the Council was suffering more. How long can we hold out? She asked at a cabinet meeting. Finance Minister Donghae checked his figures. 6 months, maybe a year. After that, our economy will start to fail. And the Council? They are already failing. Their trade networks have collapsed. Their currency is losing value. Some species have started using human credits as money because they are more stable. General Minho smiled. We are winning without firing a shot. Not yet, President Yunji said. The Council still has their warships. Vorath is proud and angry. If he feels cornered, he might attack. Then let him attack, Admiral Jinho said. Our ships are ready. Our soldiers are prepared. If they want war, we will give them war. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what war would mean. Millions would die. Cities would burn. The stars themselves would become battlefields. War is the last option, President Yunji repeated. But if it comes, we will not run. We will face it together. In the weeks that followed, more news arrived from across the galaxy. The Tyranny had successfully broken away from the Council. The Belcani had stopped paying tribute. The raiders grew bolder and bolder. And then one day, Ambassador Taiho received a message that changed everything. It was from High Elder Varth himself. Not a demand, not a threat, a request. Ambassador Taiho of Earth, I wish to speak with you privately. No conditions, no demands. Just a conversation between two leaders. Please respond. Taiho read the message 3 times. Then he showed it to President Yunji. It's a trap, General Minho said immediately. Maybe, Taiho replied. Or maybe Vorath is finally ready to admit he was wrong. President Yunji thought for a long moment. Then she said, respond. Tell him you are willing to listen. But nothing more. Taiho sent the response that night. He did not know what Vorath wanted. He did not know if this was the beginning of peace or another trick. But he knew one thing for certain. The galaxy was watching. And humanity had their attention at last. The great powers of the universe had spent centuries ignoring Earth. They had treated humans like children playing with toys. They had laughed at human dreams and dismissed human hopes. Now, 3 months after walking out of the council hall, humans had proven something important. They were not insects. They were not weak. They were patient, strong, and absolutely necessary. And the galaxy would never forget that lesson again. 6 months after the humans left, the galaxy was burning. High Elder Vorath stood on the balcony of his palace, watching smoke rise from the city below. Riots had broken out that morning. Citizens were angry, hungry, afraid. The guards had stopped the violence, but the damage was done. His empire was dying, and everyone knew it. High Elder, Advisor Telek said from behind him. The other elders are waiting. Vorath turned slowly. His blue-stone skin looked gray and tired. His forearms hung at his sides like dead weight. In 6 months, he had aged more than in the past 1,000 years. Tell me the news, he said. All of it. Telek swallowed nervously. The Varkians have collapsed. The disease killed 60% of their population. They are blaming us for refusing to negotiate with the humans. What else? The raiders have formed a united fleet. They attacked 3 council worlds last week. We lost 2 million soldiers and 50 ships. What else? Elder Krivax was killed yesterday. The people of his world rose against him. They put his body in the street. Vorath closed his eyes. Krivax had been his friend for 10,000 years. They had built the council together. Now Krivax was dead, killed by his own people. And the humans? Vorath asked. Still silent. Still waiting. Vorath laughed, but it was a hollow sound. They do not even need to fight us. They just watch while we destroy ourselves. He walked slowly toward the council chamber. The other elders were seated around the great table, but their faces showed no pride. No power, only fear. We must act, Elder Morth said immediately. The situation is desperate. What would you suggest? Elder Yeneth asked bitterly. We have tried everything. Threats, promises, bribes. The humans refuse all contact. Then we must attack them, said Elder Vorath, but his voice had no strength. We must force them to what? Force them to what? Morath interrupted. Die fighting? They will do that gladly. And while we spend our fleets on Earth, the raiders will take everything we have left. The elders fell silent. They all knew the truth. They were losing, and there was nothing they could do about it. Finally, Vorath spoke. There is only one option left. I must go to Earth myself. I must beg the humans for peace. The other elders stared at him in shock. You cannot, Yennefer said. A High Elder has never done such a thing. It would be humiliating. Yes. Vorath stood up, his old bones creaking. But what is my pride worth if our civilization dies? What is my honor worth if billions of our people starve? He looked around the table. I made this mistake. I insulted the humans. I drove them away. Now I must fix it, whatever the cost. 1 week later, Vorath's personal ship approached the human border. It was a small vessel, carrying only the High Elder and a few servants. No weapons, no guards, just an old leader coming to admit his failure. General Hana was the commander of the border fleet. She was a woman in her 50s, tough and experienced. She had fought in 3 wars and lost 2 sons in battle. She did not trust the council. The alien ship is requesting permission to enter, her officer reported. Hana studied the sensor data. 1 ship. Minimal power signature. It seems genuine. What are your orders, General? Hana thought for a long moment. Part of her wanted to destroy the ship. Part of her wanted to turn it away. But orders from Earth had been clear. If Vorath came in peace, he would be heard. Let him through, she said. But keep our weapons ready. Vorath's ship landed on Earth 3 days later. He was met at the dock by Ambassador Taiho and a group of soldiers. There were no cheering crowds. No ceremonial welcome. Just cold faces and watchful eyes. High Elder, Taiho said, bowing slightly. Welcome to Earth. Vorath looked around. The planet was beautiful blue oceans, green forests, mountains touching the clouds. Hard to believe such a small world had caused so much trouble. Ambassador, he replied. Thank you for receiving me. They walked together through the city streets. Humans watched from windows and doorways. Some looked curious. Some looked angry. A few children pointed and whispered. Your world is lovely, Vorath said. Thank you. We have worked hard to protect it. Yes, Vorath felt shame burn in his chest. I suppose you have. They arrived at the government building. President Unji was waiting in the Great Hall, surrounded by her advisors. Admiral Jinho stood behind her, his face unreadable. Vorath entered the hall and stopped. He looked at the humans, so small, so fragile, so impossibly stubborn. Then he did something he had never done before. He lowered himself to his knees. The hall gasped. Even Telek, who had prepared Vorath for this moment, looked shocked. President Unji, Vorath said, his voice trembling. I have come to apologize. 6 months ago, I treated your people with disrespect. I demanded your surrender. I laughed at your dreams. I was wrong. He lowered his head until his forehead touched the floor. The council is dying. Our people are suffering. Our enemies are attacking. We have no one to blame but ourselves. I am not asking for your help. I am begging for it, please. If not for me, then for the billions who are innocent of my crimes. The hall was silent. Everyone watched President Unji. She studied Vorath for a long moment. This creature had threatened her world, had called her people insects, had wanted to take their colonies and make them slaves. Now he was on his knees, begging like a child. Part of her wanted to say no. Part of her wanted revenge. But she thought of the innocent people dying across the galaxy, the Varkians killed by disease, the worlds burned by raiders, the children starving because trade had stopped. They did not deserve to suffer for Voreth's pride. "Stand up, High Elder," she said finally. Voreth raised his head. Hope flickered in his ancient eyes. "Your apology is heard, but apologies are not enough. If you want our help, you must prove you have changed. The Council must reform. All species must be treated as equals. No more tribute. No more slavery. No more demands." "I agree," Voreth said immediately. "All of it. We will write new treaties. Fair treaties. And you will sign them in front of the entire galaxy. Yes, whatever you want." General Hanna stepped forward. "And the raiders? They must be stopped. We will fight them together," Voreth promised. "Human and Council ships, side by side." President Yunji nodded slowly. "Then we have an agreement. But understand this, High Elder. Humanity will never forget what you did. We will never fully trust you again. This partnership will be built on actions, not words." Voreth rose to his feet. His legs shook, but his heart was lighter than it had been in months. "I understand, President Yunji, and I will spend the rest of my life proving myself worthy." The two leaders shook hands, the first physical contact between a High Elder and a human president in history. It was not forgiveness. It was not friendship, but it was a beginning. And in the great darkness that had fallen on the galaxy, even a small light was precious. The human ships left the Council station 1 hour after the delegation walked out of the Great Hall. Admiral Jinho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Earth's Pride, watching the massive structure grow smaller on the VIEWSCREN. Captain Dawn approached him. "Sir, we are receiving hundreds of messages from Council species. They are demanding we return." "Ignore them," Jinho said. "Some are threatening to fire on us. Let them try." Jinho's voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "Send a message to all human ships in Council space. Order immediate withdrawal. Every merchant, every transport, every patrol vessel. Everyone comes home." Dawn hesitated. "Sir, that means abandoning trade agreements worth billions. Our businesses are—" "I know what it means, Captain." "Do it." Ambassador Yuna entered the bridge. Her face was tired but determined. "The Council is in chaos. They are calling emergency meetings. Voreth is furious." "Good," Jinho said. "Let him be furious." Yuna moved to stand beside him. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Jinho was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "They wanted to take our colonies. They wanted to make our children into slaves. There was no right choice, only this choice. The Council has 10,000 warships. We have less than 500. I know the numbers. They could destroy us." Jinho finally smiled, though there was no humor in it. "They could try. But destroying humans is harder than they think." Over the next 2 weeks, something strange happened. Human ships began disappearing from every corner of the galaxy. Merchant vessels that had delivered goods for decades suddenly stopped coming. Transport ships that carried passengers between worlds went silent. Patrol boats that had protected trade routes vanished like ghosts. The Council watched with confusion at first, then annoyance, then growing concern. On the planet Varkus, a hospital ran out of medicine. The humans had been supplying a special drug that cured a deadly disease common to the Varkian people. Without it, thousands began to die. On the station called Merchant's Rest, the markets fell silent. Human traders had been the main source of food, technology, and luxury goods. Now the shelves were empty. On the border world of Keleth, raiders attacked the settlement. The human patrol ships that usually protected the area were gone. The raiders burned everything to the ground. And this was only the beginning. Elder Vorath received report after report of chaos spreading across council space. He sat in his private chamber, reading the data with growing disbelief. "This is impossible," he muttered. "The humans were never this important." His advisor, a small creature named Telek, bowed nervously. "Apparently, they were. High Elder, our records show that human merchants controlled nearly 30% of all trade in Council territory. Their medical products were used by 200 different species. Their technology was... I don't want excuses." Vorath slammed his fist on the table. "I want solutions. Contact the humans. Tell them we are willing to negotiate." Telek's face went pale. "We have tried, High Elder. All communications are being refused. The humans have sealed their borders. No ships are allowed in or out. Then send a fleet to force them to talk. Our military commanders advise against that. The humans have positioned their entire navy at their border. They are ready for war." Vorath stared at his advisor. For the first time, a small seed of fear began to grow in his heart. "They are bluffing. They cannot win a war against us." "Perhaps not," Telek said carefully. "But they seem willing to try. And even if we win, the cost would be enormous. Our fleets would be damaged. Our resources would be drained. And the humans have friends." "Friends? What friends?" "Several minor species have expressed support for the humans. The Terani, the Belkani, the people of the Red Nebula. They say the Council was wrong to insult the human delegation." Vorath felt his blood turn cold. "Those species are nothing. They have no power. Alone, no. But together? And if they join with the humans?" Telek shook his head. "High Elder, I fear we have made a serious error." Meanwhile, on Earth, the government was meeting in secret. President Yunji sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by generals, admirals, and ministers. "The situation is clear," she said. "The Council has shown us who they really are. They see us as insects to be crushed. We cannot trust them." General Minho, the head of Earth's military, nodded. "Our forces are ready, Madam President. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon. If they come for us, we will make them pay for every inch of space." Minister Jie, who handled foreign affairs, raised her hand. "War should be our last option. The Council is powerful. Even if we fight well, many of our people will die." "I agree," President Yunji said. "That is why we will not fire the first shot. But we will not surrender either. We will wait and watch. The Council needs us more than they know. Soon, they will realize this. And if they don't realize it?" Admiral Jinho asked. He had returned to Earth just 2 days ago. "What if they are too proud to admit their mistake?" President Yunji smiled grimly. "Then their pride will destroy them. Every week that passes, their economy weakens. Their people suffer. Their enemies grow bold. Time is on our side." The meeting continued for hours. Plans were made. Strategies were discussed. When it was over, Admiral Jinho walked out into the cool night air. He looked up at the stars, the same stars he had traveled through his whole life. His daughter, Somin, found him standing in the garden. She was 17 years old, tall and bright-eyed like her father. "Dad? Are we going to be okay?" Jinho put his arm around her shoulders. "I don't know, Somin. The universe is a dangerous place. But I know this. We will never give up. We will never stop fighting for our home. The aliens are so powerful. Yes, but power is not everything." He pointed at a small flower growing in the garden. "See that? It grows through rock and concrete. It survives storms and drought. It is not powerful, but it is strong. Humans are like that flower. We find a way. Somin leaned against her father. I hope you're right. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Across the galaxy, High Elder Vorath was learning a hard lesson. In his arrogance, he had dismissed humans as weak and unimportant. He had laughed at their hopes for friendship. He had demanded their surrender. Now, his empire was beginning to crack. Trade was falling apart. Diseases were spreading. Crime was rising. And the humans sat behind their borders, silent and waiting. For the first time in his long life, Vorath felt something he had never felt before. Uncertainty. He had made a mistake, a grave mistake. And he was only beginning to understand how serious it was. The humans had not fired a single weapon. They had not made a single threat. They had simply walked away. And in walking away, they had shown the entire galaxy something important. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was patient. And patience, in the end, was the most dangerous weapon of all. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest building in the known universe. Its walls stretched so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Lights from 1,000 different worlds floated in the air like small suns. Representatives from 500 species sat in their assigned seats, watching and waiting. Admiral Jinho stood at the entrance with his delegation. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. Behind him stood 20 officers and diplomats, all wearing the black and silver uniforms of Earth's United Fleet. They had traveled for 3 months to reach this place. They had come with hope in their hearts. Ambassador Yuna walked beside Jinho. She was younger than him, but her face showed wisdom beyond her years. She carried a folder filled with treaty proposals. Earth wanted peace. Earth wanted friendship. Earth wanted to join the galactic community as equals. Remember, Yuna whispered to Jinho, we smile no matter what they say. Jinho nodded. I know, but I have a bad feeling about this. They walked down the long pathway toward the center of the hall. Alien eyes watched them from every direction. Some species had scales. Some had fur. Some had bodies made of crystal or metal. Many of them had never seen a human before. The Council of Elders sat on a raised platform at the end of the hall. There were 7 members, each one representing the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Their leader was called High Elder Vorath. He was a creature with 4 arms and skin like blue stone. His eyes glowed with ancient light. Humans, Vorath spoke, his voice echoing through the hall. You have finally arrived. Jinho bowed his head slightly. High Elder, we thank you for this invitation. Earth is honored to be here. Vorath did not return the bow. Instead, he looked at the humans the way someone might look at insects. Let us not waste time with empty words. We know why you are here. You want protection. You want technology. You want the benefits of our alliance. Yuna stepped forward. With respect, High Elder, we are here to discuss partnership. Earth has much to offer. Our scientists, our resources are your scientists? One of the other elders laughed. It was a creature with a body like a spider and a voice like breaking glass. Your species learned to leave your planet only 200 years ago. We have traveled the stars for millions of years. What could you possibly offer us? The hall filled with laughter. Hundreds of alien voices joined together, mocking the small human delegation. Jinho's hands formed fists at his sides, but his face remained calm. Yuna opened her folder. We have brought proposals for trade, cultural exchange, and mutual defense. If the Council would review, we have already reviewed your situation, Vorath interrupted. And we have made our decision. He pressed a button on his chair. The hologram appeared in the air, showing a map of human space. 3 planets were marked with red circles. These 3 worlds, Vorath said, pointing with one of his 4 arms. New Soul, Haven, and Paradise. You will surrender them to the Council. Jinho's eyes widened. Surrender? Those are colony worlds. Millions of humans live there. They will be relocated, another elder said casually. We need those worlds for our expansion. The location is convenient for our shipping routes. And in exchange? Yuna asked, her voice tight. Vorath smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. In exchange, we will not destroy your remaining colonies. You will become a client species of the Council. You will pay tribute every year. Your ships will serve in our fleets. Your people will work in our factories. This is generous, considering what you are. The hall grew quiet. Every eye watched the humans. Jinho felt his heart pounding in his chest. He thought of his daughter back on Earth. He thought of the millions of families on those 3 planets. He thought of everything humanity had built in the past 2 centuries. And if we refuse? He asked quietly. Vorath laughed again. You cannot refuse. You are a minor species. You have no real military power. Your technology is primitive. Your population is small. You exist only because we have allowed you to exist. We have warships, Jinho said. We have soldiers. You have toys, the spider-like elder hissed. Your entire fleet could not defeat a single council battleship. Accept the offer, human. It is the only choice you have. Yuna looked at Jinho. Her eyes asked a silent question. He gave a small nod. She closed her folder slowly. Then she looked directly at High Elder Vorath. We came here in good faith, she said. Her voice was steady and clear. We traveled across the galaxy to offer friendship. We wanted to share our knowledge, our culture, our dreams. We believed that intelligent beings could work together in peace. Pretty words, Vorath said, but meaningless. No, Yuna replied. Not meaningless. These words are everything humans stand for, and you have just spit on them. She took the treaty proposals from her folder. One by one, she tore the papers in half. The pieces fell to the floor like dead leaves. The hall gasped. Such disrespect had never been shown to the council before. Admiral Jinho stepped forward. His officers formed a line behind him. Humanity has faced many enemies, Jinho said. His voice carried across the silent hall. We have fought plagues, wars, and natural disasters. We have nearly destroyed ourselves many times. But we always survived. Do you know why? Vorath's eyes narrowed. Why? Because we never surrender. We never kneel. And we never abandon our own people. Jinho turned to his delegation. We are leaving. You cannot leave. Vorath shouted, rising from his chair. The council has not dismissed you. Jinho stopped, then looked back over his shoulder. We did not ask for permission. We came here as equals and you treated us like slaves. That was your mistake. If you walk out of this hall, there will be consequences. Then let there be consequences, Yuna said. You want our worlds? Come and take them. You want our submission? You will never have it. The human delegation walked toward the exit. Their boots echoed on the stone floor. Every alien in the hall watched in shock. You are fools. Vorath screamed. You are nothing. You will regret this day. Jinho did not look back. He led his people out of the great hall and into the corridor beyond. The massive doors closed behind them with a heavy boom. In the silence that followed, the council members looked at each other. Some laughed nervously. Others shook their heads. Let them go, Vorath said, sitting back in his chair. They will come crawling back within a month. Humans are weak. They cannot survive without us. The other elders agreed. They had seen many species try to resist. All of them had failed. The humans would be no different. But as the council returned to their other business, a small voice in the back of Vorath's mind whispered a warning. Something about the look in those human eyes troubled him. It was not fear. It was not desperation, it was something else entirely. He pushed the thought away. Humans were insignificant. They would learn their place soon enough. He was very, very wrong.